My paranoid father chose to die over letting me speak to our neighbors. My dad believed that everyone wanted to kidnap so much so that at 15 I'd never been to real school and wasn't allowed to speak to anyone outside our family. Dad homeschooled me in our house where he'd covered every window with blackout curtains. He said strangers were constantly watching our house and planning to take me. I completely believed him because he'd trained me since I was 5. I'd have panic attacks if the doorbell rang and would hide in my closet sobbing. Every morning he'd tell me about the watchers he'd spotted the day before. The red car drove by twice yesterday, he'd say while peering through the blinds. The jogger stopped to tie his shoe right at our mailbox. I'd nod along, feeling my chest tighten with fear of these obvious threats. He was especially paranoid about our next-door neighbors. They moved in right after you turned 13, he'd whisper like they had microphones pointed at our house. They're definitely watching you. If I even glanced toward their house, he'd grab my shoulders so hard it left bruises. Never make eye contact with them or they'll know you're weak, he'd hiss in my ear. By 15, I was having nightmares about being kidnapped every single night, and I hadn't spoken to another human besides family in 5 years. My aunt tried to help with my paranoia during her visit last Christmas. She waited until Dad went to the basement to check his security cameras. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something important," she said while holding my shaking hands. "Nobody is watching this house. Nobody wants to kidnap you. Your dad has filled your head with lies that are ruining your life." I immediately felt my whole body start trembling with anxiety. "Your neighbors are a couple named Philip and Clara who love gardening," she continued. "Why would traffickers buy a house and wait around for years doing nothing?" she asked. "Why would kidnappers jog past at 7:15 every morning?" Slowly, she broke through the years of brainwashing. For months after she left, I'd replay her words whenever Dad started his paranoid rants. I was starting to realize that maybe the danger was all in his broken head. I was inside doing math problems when I heard this awful crash outside. At first, I thought a raccoon had knocked over a trash bin or something, but then I heard this loud human wailing that could have shattered glass. The screaming got worse, and I realized it was my dad's voice. I ran outside and found him lying twisted on our concrete patio. His leg was bent backward at the knee, and blood was pooling under his head like spilled paint. He couldn't move without screaming in agony. "Get help," he gasped while his face turned gray. I ran toward the front door, but he yelled after me with pure panic. "No, not the neighbors. They'll steal you if you talk to them." He was serious. "Call 911 from inside, but don't open the door for anyone," he moaned through bloody teeth. I grabbed his cell phone, but it was completely dead. He never remembered to charge it because he hardly used it. "The phone's dead," I told him, watching blood run down his face. "Maybe I can flag down a car," I suggested desperately. "No, you can't go near the street. That's how they grab girls," he wheezed. I looked across our yard and saw Clara watering her garden just 20 feet away. "She would definitely help us if I asked." "Don't even think about it," Dad growled when he saw where I was looking. "I'd rather die than let you talk to those people." My dad was literally choosing to bleed out rather than let me ask for help. "But you're going to die if I don't get help," I said. "Better dead than without you," he moaned. I stood there frozen, remembering everything my aunt had told me about his paranoia being a lie. Clara was right there and probably had a phone in her pocket. My dad's face was turning from gray to white as more blood pooled around him. That's when I realized my aunt was completely right about his insanity. I took a deep breath and ran across the yard while he screamed at me to stop. "Please help. My dad fell and he's really hurt," I yelled at Clara. She immediately dropped her hose and rushed over. "Oh my goodness, of course, dear," she said, already pulling out her phone. She talked to 911 while kneeling beside my dad, using towels to stop the bleeding. "Don't touch my daughter," he kept mumbling, still convinced she was dangerous. When we got to the hospital, the doctor said he would have bled out in another 10 minutes without her help. "Your daughter is very brave. She saved your life." Dad couldn't even look at me after he finally realized he had been wrong about everything. He started therapy for his paranoia and even let me enroll in public school for the first time in my life.